Of course, once we got our cast and our crew together and we started recording, which I believe is on another one of these documentaries, we needed to create our sets and our characters. The characters and the sets were both created much the same way. In both cases, Neverwinter Nights already has programs which you can use to create new characters or to create new modules, which are kind of like little dungeons, because it's a Dungeons and Dragons game where you can go and slay mighty dragons or create peace treaties with orcs or whatever you want to do. And these are actually really, really good content creation tools. They're really, really good for making the characters and sets to use in movies as well.
The map design was done using the Aurora toolset, which comes with Neverwinter Nights, and involved tiny sketches and vague instructions, like we want a bedroom, it should have a bed in it, and a window. And that was it, and go off and make a bedroom and then show it to Hugh, who would then go, not quite bedroomy enough.
I particularly remember the Sorcerer's Tower, which was an absolute nightmare to set up, to be honest, because we were trying to get lots of bric-a-brac, basically all tightly packed into a room to give the impression of a sorcerer's hoardings. Unfortunately, Neverwinter Nights isn't really set up for that kind of level design. It's more orientated towards having big spaces so you can move around without bumping into things all the time. As a result of this, we had to spend a lot of time convincing it that no, we really did want those two things to be that close together, and then shuffling them around again so that we could still move around them.
At the same time, we leapt mightily onto the internet where thousands of people, literally thousands, make free content for Neverwinter Nights, make new swords, new armour, new set decoration. They create entire new tile sets that you can use to make new types of scenery, like gothic castles or mountains or whatever. Or sewers. The sewers set was one of the ones we were most impressed by early on. We downloaded these, we tested them out, we saw which ones were good, which ones were bad, which ones were obscene, and I mean that quite literally. So because of that, we were able to create things like the Fortress using the Castle Construction set, which is a very well-known Neverwinter Nights mod that allows you to make mighty fortresses. Once we'd done all this, we got our first drafts of the various sets. We then basically grabbed everyone who was involved in set design, sat them all down in front of a computer, loaded up each of the sets in turns, and went changing rooms.
Quite a lot of conversations I remember about rugs and curtains, drapes rather it was, and yes, a lot of the rooms we redesigned several times over before we got them right, and I seem to recall actually refilming parts of it, having decided that one room didn't fit in with the set design of the others anymore.
Character design was interesting, because about half of the assets in Neverwinter Nights look like they're from a Flash Gordon film. It's like huge pointed collars and huge shoulder pads. And you've got to play around with palettes and try and get things to work, and then play around with your limited colours and find ones that will show up quite well when you're filming them in your map. So it takes quite a long time to try and get things looking, well, not too bad.
Whereas in a real theatre you'd have a room where people had all of their costumes. In BloodSpell you more had a room where people had all of their heads.
A lot of the character heads were based on existing faces that are in Neverwinter Nights, because a lot of them are quite high resolution, so they work quite well in this kind of camera angle that you don't actually get in Neverwinter Nights. But we had to play around with quite a few of them. We made some of them larger, and then we had to go through and edit them all to use toggle faces so we could do lip syncing. The character development went on for quite some time for some of the characters. Some of them, like Gad, stayed the same, I think. I don't think Gad actually changed through the whole thing. Ariane stayed mostly the same. I think there might have been a couple of minor changes to her. Carrie was blonde. We thought it was kind of bland. We gave her blue hair, which made her stand out a bit more. And Jered we changed at the very last minute before we started filming, because he was had big blonde girly hair and looked more stupid. So we made him and we did all his faces, and then we filmed the animatic for like a year with him, and then we were about to start shooting, and then Hugh kind of went, he does look stupid, doesn't he? And then we got Justin Hall to make a new head in a couple of days, I think it was. Make us a new head. And he got some quite vague directions for that, I think. It was a cross between, who was it? Jet Li and somebody else, I think. There's a sequence where Jered is naked in bed, when he wakes up naked in bed, just before this section actually. And because he's naked, and Hugh likes realism in his films, he wanted an anatomically correct Jered for that scene. The rest of us said, you're on your own with that one. So Hugh had to go on the internet and search for nude mods for Neverwinter Nights, so he could give Jered a wang, so he could roll over and waggle it in all its low polygon glory at the camera. So we left him to do that and then check they all worked, and import them, and everything was going well, because I could quite happily ignore it, fish it away, and do busy non-genital related work, until Hugh turned around and said, this needs retextured. You're doing all the photoshopping, get to work. Which led to an unpleasant couple of days of modelling someone's arse and other bits, which was not so well spent, because we did it, we tested it, and we cut it straight off and decided that anatomically correct is not for Neverwinter Nights. It's not for Machinima, I don't think.